So, why am I leaving Korea when things are just starting to go really well here? There is a few reasons, few big reasons, and I want to be honest and straightforward and let you know why. Because I'm leaving very soon. I'm leaving this week. The first big reason, let's talk about this. I'm on a tourist visa here, and as an American, I get 3 months in Korea, and then I have to leave. That's my limit, 3 months. I'm a YouTuber as well, and so could say I'm like a public figure, or I put myself out there on the internet. I'm not hidden in any way. And what that means is technically, from a perspective of the country, they may see it as I'm working in the country because right now it's quite a gray area with YouTubers, with digital nomads, with people doing freelance work online, even people working for, let's say, an American company and then doing that work here in Korea, doing that work from their computer. It's up to the government on whether or not they consider you're working online in their country, whether they consider you're working in Korea, or maybe they consider that you're working back home in America. It depends on the country, it depends on the specific government, and maybe on the specific person as well. And, maybe even depends what type of content you're making, how they want to handle it. There is another big YouTuber that I followed for many years now. His name is Nick K. He is an American as well, and he spent a lot of time in Korea. He did a bicycle tour around the country. His videos get millions of views, and he's built a huge Korean audience, a loyal Korean audience. And not long ago, he tried to get into the country, and he was detained and he was questioned by immigration services, by people at the airport. Brought into a separate room, and he was detained. And initially, they were not going to let him into the country. They were asking him, who does he work for and who's working for him? What company is he working for? All sorts of things that weren't really, he doesn't work for anyone. He's the same as me, like just a single person making videos, editing the videos, and uploading the videos. The thing is, he was let into the country. They did end up letting him into the country after many hours of questioning and them trying to figure things out. So now I believe he's fine, and from what I've read, he's getting a visa, or he's allowed into the country, and he's moving to Korea. So seems everything worked out just fine. But in general, it can always happen where you can be detained and you can be denied entry into a country for any reason, especially if you are staying in the country for the maximum duration. If I stay in the country for 3 months, then what 95% of people do is they leave for one day, 3 days, maybe a weekend, and then they fly back into the country and they stay again for the full duration. So they stay again for another 3 months and they repeat that cycle, essentially living in the country on a tourist visa. People do this in Thailand, they do this in the Philippines, they do this in Vietnam, they do this in Malaysia. I did this in Malaysia. In Malaysia, I was in touch with the tourism board because they liked my content and they reached out to me. And I asked them if I would have any issues living there on a tourist visa, going in and out. And they told me no. They directly told me that I would have no problem. So it can very much depend country to country. It very much depends what country you're from and what passport you hold. I have an American passport. I'm very lucky in that regard. If people try to do this with a passport from somewhere in Africa, a passport from the Philippines, they would have trouble much quicker. But even so, I don't like to stay the full duration. I typically like to come month and a half, 2 months somewhere, and then leave and go somewhere else, a few other countries or something for a month, at least like 1 month or so. At least a few weeks, let's say, up to a month and a half, and then go back, right? Then come back and spend some more time. This is not such a red flag. This is not frowned upon. This is more like a typical tourist, more like a traveler, and less like somebody trying to spend most of the year in the country. So this is the first reason. It's like I don't want to push my luck with staying too long in the country and just upsetting immigration and the government. especially because of me being like out in public with making YouTube videos and on the internet, making videos in Korea. Even though I am based in the US on paper, right? And on YouTube, my account is in the US. I get paid out from the US into my US bank account. I pay taxes to the US. And so, yeah, technically I am working like for the States, right? But it's up to the country, it's up to Korea or Thailand or wherever I am to decide if they feel that I'm working in their country or not. Now, I'm not taking a local job, right? I'm not taking the job of a Korean person. And, I think that is the biggest factor when they decide on, if they feel like you're working in the country. And so I think that that is a good thing. I'm making content that is promoting the country, that is promoting tourism. And so in a lot of ways, I'm not concerned, right? I'm not worried at this point, but I still want to do things in a way that feels comfortable for me, comfortable coming back here. I want to be able to come back here for many years and enjoy the country without problems. And I want to, yeah, not upset the immigration and the government of this country for the way that I'm living my life and doing my YouTube content. So reason number one, that's it laid out, right? Reason number two, another big one for me, is my living situation. It's my situation with Aran, Korean girl. If you've seen my other video with her recently, we did a video together. So I've been living with her since the beginning, since arriving. She's the one who invited me here to the country. And so I've been living with her in a one-bedroom apartment. We share the same bed. We share everything in the apartment together. We are not in a relationship, and we are romantically involved, you could say, but it's not a relationship. And so it's very unconventional, just a very unconventional situation in general, where we are just living together and we are together a lot of the time, but it's not any type of exclusive relationship. So, I'm sure you can imagine that could all sorts of problems could arise from that. But, so far everything is quite okay. We've not had we don't fight at all. We don't have any like real problems. And so, I'm very grateful for that. However, I could see, proceeding this way for too much of an extended period of time could become problematic. Feelings could get hurt. And so I feel like leaving, it's a way to create some distance between us. It's a way to maybe prevent, problems arising in the future. She's kind of vocalized to me that she's emotionally unavailable. She is, she's not in any way looking for a relationship. She very much wants to keep her freedom for the foreseeable future. And I respect that. And, I've sort of set my mind in the same way after discussing with her like that. I've sort of pulled back my feelings a bit and sort of, I just sort of accept it for what it is now. I think especially for my own sake, for my own potentially getting hurt in the future, I think it helps if I detach myself a little bit, don't get too attached further, and leave for some extended period of time to create some distance there. It's definitely difficult. It's like I don't know what's the right decision because this is like a unique circumstance, and this is like I said, very unconventional situation, and I've not been in this situation before. It's a little bit tricky, but I think that it can't hurt to leave for a bit and see how I feel, see how we both feel during that time, and give her space back, her apartment back, and her alone time back. Have some alone time for myself as well to think things through. And just in general, I think I came here with the plan for 5 days, a round trip flight back to Thailand, 5 days, right? And here we are 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks later now, and I'm still here. And, this is because she told me to stay as well. She, kind of wanted me to stay, and I wanted to stay. So it was I'm not just overstaying my welcome, it's not like that. but still, it's a long period of time, and it's way more than we anticipated. But I do think that it's because we got closer, and it's because we both are enjoying the situation. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough for me to know what to do in this moment, and I kind of just ended up deciding and like booking a flight. Right. That is the second reason. That's the second big reason. Third reason, I'll lighten up the mood a little bit, not so heavy. Third reason is just I have all my stuff in Thailand still. I have a storage unit in Thailand with all my stuff. I need to go pay that by July. And so like it is now June 9th or so. So I have to go back and like handle that at least. If it wasn't like now, it would have to be in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks anyways. And like I said, I don't want to stay the full 3 months of my tourist visa and then come back anyway. So I think, yeah, better I go now also. So it's like I have multiple reasons. It just seemed to make sense right now. Like, let me just go back to Thailand for a bit. So I will go handle that. It's rainy season in Thailand. This feels like perfect weather here right now in Korea. So it's been like I've been hesitant to go back to Thailand in a rainy season when the weather is so perfect in Korea right now. And I feel like July and August weather in Korea is going to be bad. Everyone tells me I better prepare for summer. It gets bad. Very rainy season here essentially, and like extreme heat, humidity. So yeah, that makes me uncertain. I was thinking about coming back, in the beginning of July, but again, I'm going to see how I feel. Let's see what happens over the next couple weeks in Thailand, and then I can kind of make a decision. But I am fearful of the intense heat and maybe rain here, especially with trying to film videos. I'm not 100% sure yet, right? But yeah, I need to get back to Thailand. Another reason, it's like I love Thailand, and it's always nice to go back there for a little bit of time. It's essentially, it was my home. As much as Korea has become like another, feels like home for me. It's not exactly, right. I don't have a permanent residency here. I don't have a visa here, and so like yeah, going back to Thailand, it's just an easy thing to do. It's not too expensive. I got a very cheap flight as well. It was like 60 something dollars one way. Yeah, like $62 one way flight. So like quite cheap, about as cheap as you're going to ever find a flight to Thailand, with checked baggage as well, with a free checked bag. So that's like, it's a great, opportunity, where all the other dates were over $100. And so there was one day that was not. And so I was like, seems like the best, but good as time as ever, right? And save some money, get the free check bag and like a cheap flight. So that is the plan. Is like I will go back to Thailand for a little bit, and I'm going to make videos there. I typically struggle to make videos there. I get there and I get very much into vacation mode. It's hard not to get into vacation mode in Thailand. It's what most people go there for. Unless I'm there for a long time, like a month or more, then I start to ease into like everyday life, into routine. But typically I go there, it's like, okay, I want to go to the sauna. Still, I stay healthy. I go to the gym. I cook all my meals. But cannabis, I'm using it all the time because I love it. I do. And here I'm not using it. Here it's very restricted in Korea. It's just not something I'm doing, or it's not something I'm ever going to do here. But yeah, in Thailand, I struggled to make videos in the past, but I'm committed this time to making content there. I'm going to go to some new places. I always go to the same places. I'm always in Bangkok, Pattaya. I've been to Koh Samui, but I've not been anywhere else. And so this time I'm going to explore a little bit more. I'm going to make some cool content, some interesting content, and hopefully my audience enjoys it. Another thing is like I don't typically get so many views in Thailand. There's a lot of vloggers there, and I think maybe some audiences just aren't interested, because I don't have a big Western audience. And typically the Western audience, the Americans, the Australians, the Brits, Europeans as well, are the people who like to watch Thailand content. So if I can pick up that audience a bit and maybe make some content that you guys like there as well. And I think some of you are starting to, just follow me for my personality and just follow my life and want to keep up with where I am. So I know some of you will watch it as well. This is the plan. Minimum time I'll be there is 2 weeks. I think it's going to be significantly more than that. I don't know for sure, but let's just see what happens. I thought about going to Indonesia during like July because the weather is good. It's dry season, and there's just not many places to go in July and August with like good weather, and it's like cool weather and like perfect weather in Bali at least. But then it's also hard to make content in Bali and get views. It's hard to it's just tough with the content there. I've always struggled there with the content. I like it there. I love it there. It's cheap. It's very cheap in Bali. I can get by on a low amount of money. Weather's perfect, a lot of fun, and like great food. It's really good. It's overcrowded. The traffic is insane. There are downsides to Bali, of course, but it's still a great place to live. There's a lot of like digital nomads and entrepreneurs and people to connect with there, which is nice. And a lot of young people, a different crowd than Thailand, I'll say. Not as many people just going for like, red light district stuff. That's not really a thing in Bali. And so it's more just like, yeah, people either there for fitness or they're there for party, food, stuff like this. A beach, less of like degenerate type people. And in Thailand, it's mixed. I meet some amazing people there as well. So I'm not going to say it's all bad or anything like that. I have some good friends there for sure. But yeah, I'm excited to travel again too. As much as it's like emotional for me to leave Korea, as I'm starting to really love it and feel like I'm in a good routine. It's like it's very easy to stay here. It's a very nice place to be. And it's like, it wouldn't be hard to be here for 5 years. Sure, I'd want to travel. And guys, remember, I've only been here during beautiful weather, like perfect springtime weather. So, a lot of you tell me I won't be saying this when I'm here for winter and summer weather. So I may change my mind really quickly and say, oh, Korea is only good in the spring or maybe the autumn as well, right? Fall season as well. But I have to see. I have to experience that for myself. I think I like hot weather, so as long as it's not raining morning till night every day, I think I would enjoy the summer here to some extent. Maybe just avoid the peak afternoon hours outside, and as long as I can still film, I'm okay. We'll have some good outdoor parties. It will be, might be a good vibe in the city as long as it's not too rainy. So. I don't know. Bangkok, Thailand in general gets very rainy around July, around August. And then it's really nice to go back in November, December, January, February. Yeah, it's tough. I really want to go to Japan. I mentioned it many times, but like the prices, folks, the prices. And some people told me it's just because the season and like it was like the peak season of people going in the past 2 months. And so the prices were very high, accommodations just like outrageously priced, just to go for 1 week, especially to try and go for 2 weeks. It's just like, it doesn't seem too feasible right now on my income. And it feels like a big waste of money. As badly as I want to go, it's like I will spend so much of my money there that I'd almost just like rather go make content in China where it's like significantly cheaper. As much as I prefer to go to Japan, and that's where I really want to go, I think I just have to save that for when I'm making more money. Yeah, my goals in the next couple months is like increase my earnings, keep kind of diversifying the demographic of people watching my videos, build the US audience, build the Western audience, build the local audience here and to other countries I visit. Like if I go to China, I hope to pick up some Chinese audience, maybe visit countries that will pick up more of a Western audience too, so that I can increase my earnings and it will open up more opportunities for me. Maybe I will start doing a Patreon. Maybe I will start selling merch or like open some type of donations type thing so that I can add some extra revenue streams because, my views were very high in Malaysia. I was getting a lot of sponsorships and like I could make very, very high money, but I didn't want to stay there any longer. It was just, I've been there for over 1 year and it's time to have a change. It's the longest I've been anywhere for a long time. And so, yeah, after I switched it up, it's like, yeah, the viewership went down, right? I had 80% Malaysian viewers before. And so, of course, when I leave Malaysia, those viewers, a lot of them stop watching, right? It's just this, it will go that way with any country. So now that my views are less, like, yeah, I make more YouTube revenue in Korea, but my actual like sponsors, I'm not going to be able to get the same kind of money, and this, I will not have as many opportunities with sponsors until my views go back up, until I maybe pick up more, Western audience as well. So for now, it's like I kind of took a hit to my income in order to start traveling again and not just sit in one country only. And I just have to accept that, in order to be happy and to see the world a bit more and to, kind of live the lifestyle I really want. I have to, take a pay cut right now. But maybe I can find some other ways to make money. We'll see. I'm surviving, and it's all good. I'm happy just to be able to do YouTube and survive out in Asia for such a long time, for almost 2 years now, and doing better than I was in the beginning by far. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful that all of you are watching and subscribing. Which, make sure you subscribe. Obviously, make sure you press the thumbs up. Obviously, helps me a lot. You know that. Yeah. Something a little different today. Just kind of opening up to you guys a little bit. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you in the next video. Next, make sure you watch the video with the girl that I'm living with, Aaron. We made a video together talking about living together and the whole situation, so you can watch that one right here.